The night was quiet, yet the silence screamed. Beneath a full moon, the forest trembled as if holding a secret too heavy to bear. Venerable Suda, a young monk of 28, walked alone through the mist to gather water for the monastery. But when the wind brushed against his ear, it carried a whisper. His own name, soft and trembling, spoken by a woman who should not exist. He turned, but only the fog looked back. In that breathless stillness, something ancient awoke. Love or karma, no one could tell. And as the sound faded into the dark, he wondered, can compassion awaken even the dead? The next morning, mist still clung to the trees like memory. Suda knelt by the same stream, his reflection broken by ripples that seemed to move on their own. He whispered a prayer for wandering souls, but as the wind brushed past, he heard soft laughter echo across the water, gentle, familiar, and heartbreakingly human. The world felt heavier in its silence after that sound, as though the forest itself remembered something he had forgotten. At noon, the monastery bell rang 3 times, deep, solemn, and endless. Yet with each echo, Suda heard another sound beneath it, a voice humming a melody that no one else seemed to hear. Novice Lion looked up, puzzled, but only Suda's eyes turned toward the forest. The song was calling again. It felt older than memory, softer than mercy, and it carried the ache of someone waiting beyond time itself. That night, the abbot handed Suda a lantern to light the temple path. "Darkness shows what light cannot," he said. "Eyes knowing more than words could hold." When Suda lifted the lantern, its glow revealed a woman's shadow upon the temple wall. Graceful still. Watching him, he turned, heart pounding, yet no one stood there. Only the flutter of candlelight remained, trembling like a living heartbeat. Suda sat by the lotus pond under the silver moon, whispering a single chant again and again, hoping to silence the voice that haunted him. But the more he prayed, the closer it seemed to come, until he could almost feel her breath beside him. The wind stirred the lotus petals, and he heard her name for the first time. Mira. The sound lingered in the air like a vow from another life. His heart trembled. Was this love, or karma returning to claim what it was owed? The night returned heavy with silence, but this time the mist did not hide. It led. Suda followed the whispering wind through the forest path, his lantern trembling like a soul afraid to know. A trail of lotus petals glowed faintly on the ground, guiding him deeper into the fog. Then, through the veil of light, he saw her, a woman standing by the old body tree, her hair moving though the air was still. His breath caught, his steps slowed, and time itself seemed to listen. She turned slowly, her eyes like calm water holding endless sorrow. "Why do you follow me?" she asked, her voice softer than a prayer. Suda bowed slightly, unsure if she was dream or spirit. "Because you called my name," he whispered. For a moment, her lips curved into something that could be a smile, or the memory of one. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath, and in that stillness he felt the weight of destiny pressing gently against his heart. They sat by the stream without words, their reflections side by side on the trembling surface. Suda wanted to ask who she was, but each question died on his tongue. Mira gazed into the water, touching the ripples that never touched her back. "Do monks ever dream?" she asked softly. He smiled faintly. "Only when we forget we're awake." Their eyes met, and for that one heartbeat, the world felt painfully alive. A gentle wind swept between them, carrying the scent of wild jasmine. Mira reached out, her fingers brushing his robe. Yet he felt no weight, only the whisper of cool air. Her eyes widened as though realizing something she wished he would not. "You shouldn't be here," she said, voice trembling. But Suda only smiled. "Neither should you." The forest shivered with unseen movement, and the moon dimmed as if listening to a forbidden secret. Before dawn, she stepped backward into the mist, her form dissolving like candle smoke. "Who are you?" Suda called out. She turned once more and said, "Mira!" The sound wrapped around him like music he'd always known. When the mist cleared, only the faint scent of jasmine remained, and the first light of morning breaking through the trees, Suda fell to his knees, unsure whether to pray for her soul or his own. Days passed, yet the forest still carried her name in every rustle of leaves. Suda began to walk the misted path each night, pretending it was for meditation, though his heart knew better. One evening, Mira led him to a hidden garden where moonlight touched no ground, only petals suspended in still air. "Do you fear me?" she asked. He smiled softly. "I fear forgetting you." In that moment, even the silence bowed to their honesty. At dawn, Suda placed a lotus flower on the monastery altar, whispering Mira's name within his prayer. The abbot passed by silently, his old eyes pausing on the flower's trembling petals. "Some prayers," he said gently, "are answered only by loss." Suda bowed, but in his heart he hid a storm. That night, he returned to the garden again, unable to choose between vow and love. Rain began to fall, soft as forgiveness. Mira appeared beneath the Bodhi tree, untouched by the drops that soaked the earth. "I remember," she whispered. "I once lived here, before the fire, before the silence." Suda looked up at her face, water streaming down his own. "Then I have found you twice," he said. For the first time she smiled fully, her sadness breaking like dawn through clouds. Love, pure yet impossible, filled the air between worlds. Suda began to forget sleep. In meditation he saw Mira's face instead of emptiness. In chanting, her name rose between his breaths. Novice Lion found him staring into nothing, whispering to unseen air. "Venerable," the boy asked, "who are you talking to?" Suda smiled faintly. "A memory," he said, though his voice trembled, betraying the truth. The abbot's bell rang in the distance, its echo heavy with unseen judgment. One night, when the mist grew thick as breath, Suda reached out, and for the first time felt her hand. Cold, trembling, but real. Mira looked terrified. "If you touch me again, I may never leave," she warned. Suda's voice broke like a vow cracking under weight. "Then let karma decide." Thunder rolled beyond the mountains, and their fingers intertwined, binding monk and ghost in love's most dangerous prayer. At dawn, Suda found Abbot Tensi in the scripture hall, turning brittle palm leaf scrolls. "Master," he whispered, "have you ever heard of a woman named Mira?" The abbot paused. The silence was long, deep as a grave. Finally, he said, "Mira of the eastern village. She died in the fire 20 years ago." The words struck like thunder inside Suda's chest. For the first time, the monk understood. Love had returned to him, wrapped in smoke. Suda walked to the eastern valley where the old village once stood. The earth was scarred and quiet, blackened stones sleeping beneath vines. He saw a small clay pendant in the ashes, a lotus carved by delicate hands long gone. When he touched it, the air grew cold. A faint voice whispered, "You remembered me." He turned, and there she stood, Mira, radiant and sorrowful, standing in the ruins of her own life. "I died waiting," Mira said softly, her voice trembling like the wind through reeds. "The fire came when I went to light a candle for my mother's spirit. I never left this place." Suda's hands shook. "Then why am I able to see you?" She looked at him, eyes filled with both gratitude and grief. "Because you prayed for me before you were born." He felt his heart collapse into stillness. How long had their souls been circling the same flame? That night, Suda knelt before the Buddha image, his beads slipping through trembling fingers. He had taken vows to renounce desire, yet his heart burned like incense. "If love is attachment," he whispered, "then let me be bound." Outside, the wind carried Mira's song, haunting, tender, filled with longing. The abbot's voice echoed from the shadows, low and steady. "To love a ghost is to love what suffering never releases." Suda wept, yet could not turn away. Mira appeared once more by the lotus pond, her glow dimmer now, her voice faint as rain. "Every night I come closer to vanishing," she said. "When dawn comes, I fade." Sudha took her hands, this time even colder. "Then I will stay awake forever," he said. But the sky broke open with thunder, and the pond reflected the shape of burning flames. The same fire that had taken her. The past was calling again, and neither could escape its light. For the first time, Sudha hid from the morning bell. When the abbot called the monks to chant, he remained by the lotus pond, waiting for a ghost. "One day without her," he whispered, "is 1,000 lives in emptiness." Mira appeared, her form flickering like a candle struggling to stay alive. "You're fading," he said. She smiled sadly. "So are you." In that reflection he saw it, his own face paling, the color of life retreating from his skin. Abbot Tenzin stood at the doorway, his gaze heavy with both compassion and sorrow. "Every soul you cling to pulls you into its suffering," he said. "Let her go before you forget the path." Sudha bowed, but his silence spoke louder than any vow. That night, the abbot prayed alone, his tears falling into the flame of the butter lamp. One for the monk, one for the ghost, and one for the love that could never belong to this world. By moonlight, Mira appeared once more, weaker than ever. "When you pray, I come closer," she whispered. "But each time you call me, I lose more of what I am." He stepped forward, trembling. "Then let me lose myself too." Their lips met, cold, weightless, fleeting as breath. The moment passed, and her image flickered wildly, half light, half tear. "You shouldn't have done that," she cried. "Now you will dream my death as your own." That night, Sudha dreamt of burning, the same village, the same screams. He saw Mira reaching for him through flames, her skin turning to light, her voice calling his name. "Sudha!" He woke gasping, smoke still in his throat, sweat soaking his robe. The candle beside him flickered violently, forming shapes of fire in the air. He realized with terror. The boundary between life and death was thinning, and his heart had become the bridge. Sudha rose before dawn, eyes fierce with resolve. He walked into the forest, past the bells, past the shrine, toward the ruins where Mira once lived. "If loving you is illusion," he said, "then let illusion be my truth." As he entered the clearing, the wind roared, and the mist turned crimson under the rising sun. The abbot's voice echoed faintly from afar, chanting for protection. But Sudha had already stepped beyond the gate of the living, and the forest answered with silence. The abbot prepared the sacred circle before dawn. Candles burned low, their smoke curling like prayers rising toward unseen heavens. "To free her," he said, "you must face the mirror of your heart, without desire, without fear." Sudha stepped into the circle, palms pressed together, his robe heavy with dew. Mira appeared beyond the flames, her eyes filled with both love and apology. "I never wanted to bind you," she whispered. "You didn't," he answered softly. "I bound myself." As the abbot's chanting deepened, the air grew thick with sound, mantras vibrating through leaves and bones alike. Sudha began to tremble. Mira's form flickered, her outline thinning with every verse. "Let go," said the abbot, his voice echoing like thunder in still air. But Sudha's heart clung, his tears falling freely. "I can't," he cried. The abbot's reply came gently. "Then suffer until compassion becomes stronger than love." The ritual ended by the river, where the living and the dead meet in reflection. Mira stood upon the water's surface, calm and radiant. "If you release me," she said, "you will forget me." Sudha nodded slowly. "That is the price of peace." Her eyes softened, not in sorrow, but in acceptance. "Then let me go with your blessing." The wind rose gently as he pressed his palms together, whispering, "May you be free." The river shimmered, swallowing her reflection like a promise kept. When the last light of Mira's spirit faded, Suda took the lotus pendant and placed it upon the altar of ashes. His hands were steady now, his tears gone. Every attachment burns itself away, he murmured, until only love without wanting remains. The abbot stood beside him, silent but proud. The fire caught slowly, consuming the offering. The smoke curled upward, not dark, but luminous, as though the heavens themselves accepted the release. As dawn broke, the forest was still. The mist had vanished, replaced by sunlight resting upon the dew. Suda stood where Mira once appeared, listening to the wind move through the trees. No whispers now, only peace. He smiled faintly, feeling her presence not as a ghost, but as a breath within all things. The abbot's bell rang in the distance. This time he answered its call, walking back to the monastery with nothing to hold and nothing to lose. Weeks passed. Suda's room was bare now. No lantern, no flower, no scent of jasmine. Only the faint outline of a sitting mat, and the echo of his breath remained. Novice Lion entered quietly, holding a bowl of rice. "Venerable," he whispered, "you've not eaten in 2 days." Suda smiled softly. "I am full," the novice frowned. Not understanding, but Suda's eyes were calm, clear as a lake with no reflection. One evening, he walked again to the lotus pond where everything began. The surface was still, untouched by wind. As he knelt to pray, a single white lotus bloomed from the mud, its petals glowing faintly under the fading sun. He touched the flower gently and whispered, "Mira." The petals quivered, releasing a small wisp of silver light that drifted upward, not haunting, but blessing. The cycle had completed itself. Abbot Tenzin found him later by the temple gate. "The world clings to beauty because it fears its passing," he said softly. "But beauty only exists because it passes." Suda bowed, and for the first time since his ordination, he felt no weight upon his shoulders. "Thank you, Master," he said, "for showing me that love is not possession. It is permission to let go." The abbot smiled, his eyes shining like dawn on still water. That night, as the monks gathered to chant, Suda rang the temple bell. The sound rolled over the mountains, echoing through forest and river alike. For a moment he thought he heard her voice within the resonance. Not calling, not longing, just present. The bell faded into silence, and the wind took its place, whispering across the land like an unbroken prayer. He smiled. Love had never left. It had only changed its shape. At dawn, Suda walked once more through the forest path, the same one where he first heard the whisper. Now, there was no mist, no shadow, no ghost, only bird song and sunlight dancing through leaves. He paused beneath the bodhi tree, hands joined, eyes closed. "May all who suffer find peace," he whispered. A petal drifted down and landed on his palm, weightless, pure, silent. The bell rang from afar, and in that sound, the world was whole again.